Micah. Introduction. Author. The book of Micah was written by prophet Micah. Micah has the word of God that came to him about the judgment concerning Jerusalem and Samaria. Micah was from the town of Moresheth. Micah 1:1. Probably Moresheth Gath. Micah 1:14. In southern Judah. The prophecy attests to Micah's deep sensitivity to the social ills of his day, especially as they affected the small towns and villages of his homeland. Date. Micah prophesied sometime between 740 BC and 710 BC during the reigns of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Theme and message. Micah's message alternates between oracles of doom and oracles of hope. The theme is divine judgment and deliverance. Micah also stresses that God hates idolatry, injustice, rebellion, and empty ritualism, but delights in pardoning the penitent. Finally, the prophet declares that Zion will have greater glory in the future than ever before. The Davidic kingdom, though it will seem to come to an end, will reach greater heights through the coming of the Messianic deliverer. Micah chapter 1. Introduction. In this chapter, we have the warning given of desolating judgments hastening upon the kingdoms of Israel and Judah for their sin. The particulars of the destructions are specified. The greatness of the destruction are illustrated. These prophecies of Micah might well be called his lamentations. This is the map of Israel. The green part is the kingdom of Israel, also called the northern kingdom. The orange part is the kingdom of Judah, also called the southern kingdom. During the reign of Rehoboam, king of Israel, Israel was split into two, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Jeroboam was the first king of the northern Israel. Verse 1. The description emphasizes that Micah's message was from God. It was the Lord's message. This message came to Micah with great power. That was because the Lord's Spirit came into Micah, and the Spirit controlled him and used him, as is said in Micah chapter 3 verse 8. Micah refers only to the kings Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah of the southern nation Judah. The northern nation Israel refused to obey God's covenant. Its people appointed kings without God's agreement. The city of Moresheth was about 25 miles southwest of Jerusalem, on the border between the lands of Judah and Philistine. The city of Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, and Jerusalem was the capital of the southern kingdom of Judah. Micah looks to both the northern and the southern kingdom in his prophecy. Verse 2. This is a preface demanding attention. Micah gives an order to all the people in Samaria and Jerusalem. The people in Israel had a special relationship with God because they had made a covenant with Him. But they had not followed the rules in the covenant. So God calls both Israel and the other nations to the court of law. He asks them to defend themselves. But the whole world must hear this message. Let the Lord God be a witness against you, the Lord from His holy temple. Verse 3. With vivid images, Micah saw the Lord descending from heaven to earth and coming with judgment. High places and valleys describes all places everywhere. People in other nations met together on the high places. They prayed to their gods there. God had ordered King Hezekiah to destroy such places. High places set up for worship of idols or for military fortifications shall be tread upon by the Lord and be trampled into the dust. Verse 4. He will come to give judgment. He will come to punish sin. Nations and institutions will melt when they meet God's fire. The pride of mountains is their height and strength. The pride of valleys is their fruitfulness. These shall be molten under him, melted down as wax before the fire. Neither men of high degree as the mountains, or men of low degree as the valleys, shall be able to secure either themselves or the land from the judgments of God, when they are sent with a commission to lay all waste. Verse 5. Micah accuses Jacob, the northern nation from Jacob's family, and he accuses Israel, all Israel, about sin. The people have not obeyed the covenant that God made with Israel. They have not obeyed God's commands. Samaria is the northern capital and Jerusalem is the southern capital of the nation Israel. All the calamities of Jacob is owing to their transgressions, and that of Judah is their high place, that is idolatry. They have decided that they will not obey God's covenant. Verse 6. Samaria stood on a hilly platform. Samaria's people prayed to images. They exchanged the greatness of God with graven images. God was like a husband to the people of Israel. They had a special relationship called the covenant with him. But they were not loyal to him. They were like prostitutes who leave their husbands to go with other men. Therefore, Micah prophesies the coming judgment on Samaria, the capital city of Israel. This was fulfilled in 722 BC when Samaria fell into the hands of the Assyrians when Sennacherib was king. He completely destroyed Samaria and made it a heap of a field. Verse 7. Micah combines the ideas of idolatry and spiritual adultery. As is said in this verse, Samaria and her idols were ruined together by Sennacherib, Isaiah chapter 10 verse 11, and their gods cast into the fire. The conquerors broke them up and used the money to repeat the same cycle. All this wealth shall become a prey to the idolatrous nations, and so be the hire of a harlot again. Verse 8. Micah weeps as he speaks God's judgment. He feels as God feels. Micah has seen what will happen to Samaria. He knows that the situation is hopeless. There is no remedy for Samaria's problems. God's judgment is certain. Punishments from God must happen. A wicked enemy will overcome Samaria. Micah cries like dragons and owls. Dragons move together in groups. They seem to cry in a sad way. Both dragons and owls give the impression that they are unhappy. Micah cared so deeply that he wept with his God's people. His duty was more than just announce judgment and to walk away. Verse 9. Are only incurable wounds are the ones we refuse to bring to God. When we refuse to bring our sin to Him, then our wounds are incurable. The sin is like a disease that has spread to Judah. Nobody can stop the disease. It has spread right into the center of Jerusalem. Having prophesied about Samaria, Micah continues his prophecy against Jerusalem, since the wound has spread right into Jerusalem. Verse 10. The shame of Judah's judgment is evident among the nations. The Hebrew word for each town becomes a message about the future. Gath sounds like the Hebrew word for tell. House of Arpha means house of dust. The message is, do not tell it to the tell town, that is Gath. The city of Gath belonged to the Philistines, and it hurts Micah to think that the Philistines will rejoice at the pain of God's people. Do not weep in Weep Town. Roll yourselves in the house of dust, that is, house of Arpha, where he tells the citizens of Beth Arpha to roll in the dust in anticipation of the coming judgment. Following to the end of the chapter, Micah used puns and plays on words to talk about the judgment coming upon the cities of Judah. Verse 11. Shaphir. The name of this town sounds like the Hebrew word for pleasant. Shaphir was a beautiful city. It won't be beautiful for long, since its people will soon be prisoners by the Assyrians. They will make its people walk naked through the streets. Their shame will be great. Their enemies will not care about them. Micah warns the citizens of Shaphir to prepare for judgment. Zanan. The name of this town sounds like the Hebrew word for come out or exit. But the people in the town called Zanan will not come outward. When the siege armies come, they will not go to help their neighbors in the battle. Instead, they will hide behind their walls and shut up in the city until it falls. Beth-Ezel. Beth-Ezel means house where they take away. Its people will take away all their help. It means that they will not protect Judah any longer. They will not condole with or bring any succor to their next neighbors in distress. When the army of judgment comes, it won't be near and helpful to any other city. Verse 12. Maroth means bitter. When the army of judgment comes, the citizens of Maroth will know plenty of bitterness. Bitter people need hope. The people of Maroth waited carefully for good. But there was no help from Jerusalem's people. Jerusalem is the city whose name means peace. The Assyrians will march right up to the great gate of Jerusalem and carry out God's judgment. Since evil came down from the Lord unto the gate of Jerusalem, it will not be a source of peace for anyone. Verse 13. Lachish was an important town. It was 4 miles from Micah's house. There was an army there. The army's job was to defend the western hills. The men in the army used chariots and they used fast horses. Even brave soldiers were afraid of the chariots. The 2 words horses and Lachish sound similar in the Hebrew language. Lachish means team of horses. The people of Lachish thought that they were in no danger from the Assyrians because of their mighty horses. Lachish's people taught Jerusalem's people to sin by making them trust in their chariots instead of God. So, the people of Jerusalem and Judah had the same sin too. The daughter of Zion is another name for Jerusalem, the capital of Judah. The transgressions of Lachish were found in Jerusalem. Verse 14. The Assyrian army would soon come to destroy Judah. Without the towns Moresheth, Gath, and Aksib, Jerusalem would not be a capital any longer. Moresheth, Gath. The name of this Micah's hometown sounds like the Hebrew word for betrothed. Here he speaks of giving the city wedding gifts as she passes from the rule of one husband, Judah, to another, the invading army. Aksib. Aksib is now under the Assyrians' control. Therefore, Judah's rulers cannot receive taxes from the people of Aksib. Aksib means deception. It was a wealthy town. Now they will not be wealthy any longer. The city would fall so quickly, it would be a deception and a disappointment for the kings of Israel. That is the result of God's judgment on a nation. Verse 15. People of Mareshah. The Hebrew words here sound like someone who takes possession or heir. But God will bring another heir to Mareshah. The invading Assyrian army will soon possess the city. Adullam. The cave of Adullam is where David ran away from Saul and hid himself. It will again be a place of refuge for the high and mighty among Israel when they are forced to hide out in Adullam as a hideout from the Assyrians. Verse 16. Parents love their children. The Assyrians will take the children away to a foreign country. It will be a time when the parents are sad. God tells them to cut off their hair. He tells them to make themselves bald like a vulture that has no feathers on its head. The people had a custom that when they are ashamed and sad, they would shave off their hair from their heads. Then everyone would see how sad they are. Soon, Judah's people and Jerusalem's people would suffer terribly, and then they would follow this custom. Micah chapter 1, questions. Micah chapter 1, answers to the questions.